promises, bright futures they sell, but we know the truth they bring us with turbine hell. They claim it's for us, jobs and good times, but we see the deals the government, their crimes. John and true, we say no. Keep your turbines out in the snow. We won't bow, we won't break our lands and stay. For goodness sake, green energy, they shout so loud, but it's money that they seek. Won't let our island be their king. We are strong, we will speak. Hidden agendas, backroom deals. They think we don't see, but we know how it feels. John and Andrew, we say no. Keep your turbines out in the snow. We won't bow, we won't break our lands and stay. For goodness sake. John and Andrew, we say no. Keep your turbines out in the snow. We won't bow, we won't break our lands and stay. For goodness sake. Green energy, they shout so loud, but it's money that they see. We won't let our island be their king. We are strong, we will speak. Hidden agendas, backroom deals. They think we don't see, but we know how it feels. We won't how it feels. Hidden agendas, backroom deals. They think we don't see, but we know how it feels. We won't speak.
Okay, that was God damn, I forgot them. Anyway, we'll find out who they are. They're a good pair of good-looking boys. Now, when I was in Fremantle last time, a woman came into my bus. I was doing a lot of interviews then, and she just did this interview, and it became probably the most popular interview Cafe Lockdown's ever done. Not that it was shared so much on ours, but it was shared so much ever since. I've seen it everywhere, and people still reach out to me for it. And so I'm going to bring on our co-hosts tonight. We've got Tom and Robin.
Hello.
And we're going to bring on, this is Martine. Martine wasn't in the interview, but she's a part of this. And here we are with Alex. And I see which one of these did I set up for us to look so good, because there's so many of us on tonight. Just fart around. Not that one, not that one. Not that one, not that one, not that one. All right. Well, we'll just stick with it. I don't know which one it was. It looked so good before. Anyway, I'm going to put the ladies up. I'll stick Pretty Tom in the middle. Now, last night, Alex, you told us the story about wind turbines, that they were powered by coal, were basically useless and just almost money laundering, just a way for a lot of people to get rich. And now Four Corners has done a hit piece on you. So, how did that happen? How did the Four Corners get in touch and go from there?
They actually got in touch with Martine and asked Martine to do an interview, so she might be the better person to explain that part of it.
Sure. How about you, Martine? How did it happen?
So Four Corners actually reached out to Kyle Trelaw and Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay. And knowing how mainstream media works, I was really quite hesitant, but we decided there was quite a bit of pressure. They were putting it in framed it in such a way that they really wanted to get the understanding of what's happening here in WA and what we're all about. And yeah, it started kicking off from there. So yeah, they filmed Kyle out in his boat and were quite subdued. And then let's just say things kind of changed and declined from there.
Wow. Well, Tom, before we start, do you have anything you want to bring up from last night's show to give us a talking point?
It's actually interesting just watching, because I'm the only one who watched it. Michael didn't watch. Did you watch it, Michael? We were gonna do a game.
No, I was doing the other interview with the
I did.
yesterday.
I watched it. I even took notes, Tom. I even took notes.
Okay.
But
Well, I'm just going to sit back here and just.
But I think the interesting thing is,
go.
I just read news as news hit pieces nowadays, and I can read between the lines, and I think it's not just a few people; it's a lot of us that now, even the people that didn't at the start. A lot of people don't believe the mainstream news anymore, and I just saw some of it as
yes, John.
You guys being attacked, and you just read between the lines. Especially, I'm pretty sure I've got the clip for it, but when he attacks Martine, I don't know what the reporter's name is, and he just goes, "Oh, well, did you know that Alex is part of what was it again? What's the foundation?
The Warbra Foundation.
The Warbra Foundation, and that Alex is, she condones fossil fuels, but I'm like, well, that's not a fucking secret, is it? That's like you're on the other side, and they're making you out that you're hiding this stuff, but it's not. You're saying that you're against wind turbines, but he doesn't point out it's just framed in such a way that the wind turbines are the correct way to go, and anyone who's against it, you're basically a witch. It's like a witch hunt. You're against the narrative. And look at me, I'm just fucking flustered because I'm actually annoyed because it's just so mind blowing, and the people can't see it. Because the other thing was, I was going to leave it till later, but because I want to hear you speak as Alex the most. But I'm wondering, the person that was the owner of the lawn bowls, they were saying that how she was getting kickbacks and her insurance was getting paid by the wind turbines, and it paid for a fryer and some other stuff. But it doesn't actually mention if she's getting a wind turbine placed on the property. Is that like I watched it twice, but it doesn't say anything about her having what's she getting the money for? I don't understand. So anyway, let Alex speak. But yeah, look, I was just keeping it in short. I was just reading in between the lines, and it is a hit piece. It's actually not as bad as what I thought they were going to attack you with. But yeah, the 5 minutes that they had on you, they basically said, well, she's a wind turbine, and it's the language used as well. You're a climate denier. I mean, most of us are now, like a lot of us are nowadays anyway. But why can't we have the debate and narrative? It's basically, the same thing that we had with COVID, and that's coming out more and more. We're the ones that were right, which was obscene to me at the start. But anyway. I want to hear you talk, not me. So go ahead, Alex.
Thanks, Tom. So yeah, basically I worked for the federal government for 8 years. I was working for 2 senators, and during that time, it all began with farmers coming out to speak to us, and basically, like, I listened to their stories, and when you have grown men crying in front of you about what's occurring with their farms, like, it really rocked me to my core. And I knew that what they were saying was true. And what was occurring was basically they were getting absolutely ripped off, and they could no longer work or live on their farms because the health effects of living next to wind turbines are really serious. The
Like what?
infrasound frequency sound that comes from the turbines,
Hmm.
it's so infrasound can be used as a weapon. And the turbines, when the blade passes the tower, it makes like a whoop sound as it goes past. And like these turbines that they're building are really big, and the turbines create an air pressure change in the atmosphere that you can feel in your body. It's coupled with the seismic vibration that can be measured out to 30 kilometers.
I'm going to switch
And
my thing.
basically, like, the first populations to go in the area, like, this was specific to the Warbra wind farm, which was one of the first ones to get built. That was built by the Spanish company Acciona. And with the air pressure chamber changes, the bats would implode as they were flying near them. So their little bodies would implode, basically, from the air pressure changes. So you've got your bats dying, you've got your birds dying, and the farmers that are living near them are suffering really severe health effects.
I think
And
it's really important, Alex, to point out to people that in the Four Corners report, Angus misrepresented what actually the Warbra Foundation was doing and what you were doing. He completely misrepresented that, and actually you were looking at these things, weren't you? You were investigating the infrasound and the low frequency sound and how harmful it is.
that's correct. The Warbra Foundation was set up to expose the health effects of living near wind turbines, and the industry stopped at nothing to shut that information down. Like, they trotted out every bureaucrat, every paid person that they could come up with, and the line was, there is no evidence to connect adverse health events with wind turbines. Sorry, adverse health effects with wind turbines.
Sounds like something else. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And now it's changed to, there is no evidence to connect whale deaths with wind turbines. When I heard that one in the episode last night on Four Corners, I just about blew my brains out because I was like, that's not a game.
Tom, you had a comment about that with me today, about the whales. We can't hear you, Tom. You're muted.
Sorry, I was wondering if that was the guitar because my daughter's next door, so I was wondering if it was my guitar that was going off before because she likes to play guitar here and there. Yeah, that actually, I don't think she realised, but I think it was Kelly Shaughnessy who said, there's no link to the whales, but she actually shoots herself in the foot. Because in the next couple of sentences, she then says, the wind turbines basically shut themselves off not to interfere with the sonar. So she's admitting that the wind turbines do affect the sonar. So she's actually plain outright just basically shot herself in the foot by saying they do affect the sonar. And then she gives us, I'm going to try and call her out on this because I want evidence. She says that the wind turbines shut themselves off when the whales come near. Now, do you know of any technology that knows that whales are near the wind turbines and the wind turbines will automatically shut themselves off? Because I smell porkies, basically. I just don't believe it.
Another one of the porkies, and I know we talked about this, Martine and Alex, about the installation, and the lady you're talking about, Tom, she's the CEO of the Australian Conservation Society, and she also said that they needed to be mindful of the installation, and because that's quite traumatic to the ocean floor and to the marine life. And if people care to remember how they opened the show, they said to keep up with Australia's net zero goal for 2030, they'd have to install one wind turbine every day to reach their goal. And so, the CEO of the Australian Conservation Society saying that we'll be mindful of installation. We won't install them when the whales are migrating. And that should be okay. Martine, I know you know a lot about the migration of the whales. What are your thoughts about her comments there about certainly installing the turbines?
Well, speaking to local whale experts, and I can only go off, I'm not a whale expert myself, although I know quite a lot about the marine environment because that's what I studied. The thing is that historically that marine vessels, and that was my answer to the question, just so you know, that his name was Angus Grigg. Makes me twitch a little bit now.
You got Angus Tourette's.
So what it was is that when he asked me about that, my reply was that yes, there is going to be increased whale deaths because there's going to be an increase in marine vessels that will be in this area because of the maintenance. So that's the one thing and that's historically known. So that is absolutely what I said. That was my answer, but that's not what was put there. They cut and paste another answer from something else that they did. So you know how it goes. It's like 80s sensationalism kind of programming here. It's great. So going back to the whales, look, I know that the migration path here is vital to not only ecotourism and research, but also this area has been now put forward for a report to the federal government that it's actually not just a migration path, it's actually a nursery. So when you look at the protection levels, what happens in a nursery, you can't have infrastructure in the oceans. So now that those reports have gone to the federal government, let's see what they have to say about that, Tanya Plebersek. So the EPBC Act of 1999 is there to protect endangered species, and that's been there for a long time. It has been, I've looked up and seen sort of the prosecution level, and we're talking about farmers weren't able to do work on their own land because there was some rare endangered orchid. But now we're talking about, some species that have recovered in Wales and others that are still quite vulnerable. We have the great southern right whale, and their numbers are very low still. The blue whales and the other whales are sort of starting to do some recovery. We've got a lot of humpbacks along here, and of course, the infamous, unfortunately, pilot whales that are like the workers of the ocean out there, like really getting out there and stirring up the substrates, like the stratification levels. So that's what whales do, and they're so important to the ecosystem, is that as whales migrate along the coastline here, and it's not that far off. That's the other thing that was said, that they come quite close into the land. Well, that's actually not exactly correct. If you go and look at it, it's historically mapped out where their migration paths is. They actually follow along the side of the Lewin Current, and that's because there's nutrient disbursement as well as there's upwellings that come there. So that's where they come along the coastline. So they do come into the coastline quite close where we are, especially because this is where they give birth. So this is where it has been not disclosed so much. So now that there's been a lot of scientific research, that paper's gone for peer review. It's gone to the federal government, and I have myself witnessed a humpback giving birth on just north of Biddingup Beach, right in one of the areas that they're wanting to put one of the wind turbine areas in the ocean, the offshores. So it's vital that they need to be protected. They are super sensitive to sound. And as we know, sound is carried a lot further underwater than in the air. So the thing is that to say that they're not going to be put further at risk, I don't think anyone could say that. I think that that's absolute fantasy to make a statement that the impact of those pylons, and I've seen a lot of the footage and I've researched. Frank Thompson is one of the people that I listened to and numerous times went back over and over what he said. He's an acoustic specialist in the US. He's been doing acoustic work with the oil rigs over there and monitoring the impact that's having on whales when they're putting in oil rigs. So, and he said that there's 3 stages where the noise impacts them, and that's the seismic assessment, acoustic assessment, and looking at the substrate floor and their mapping. And then it's the installation and construction phase, and that's where things are really at risk, because having those pylons smashed 10,000 times each. So there's 3 to 4 pylons per wind turbine, depending what way they construct it. Again, we're going off some historical data. They haven't given us specifics. So, that's 30,000 strikes per wind turbine.
That's to install them. That's to install them. And so that's why, like, when you're at a business, when you're seeing a building site and that thing is smashing things in, that's happening underwater.
So 10,000 times. So that's 30,000 times per offshore wind turbine. If you think about the noise level, and it's 20 kilometers out, supposedly. So 20 kilometers out is actually their migration path. What happens from a lot of research that I've done is they will try and avoid those areas if they can. And what will happen is if they come into shore, they're at risk of beaching themselves in some areas. So then if they go out and around it by 20 kilometers, we're looking at 40 Ks off the shoreline here. And then we're talking about very deep water and greater predation. So that was the other factor that I brought up, which is whales that have to take their babies. Again, this is a nursery zone. It's not just a migration path. Because of that, those babies are going to be at greater risk from predation.
Now,
can I ask, before we go here, can I just ask one question? And this is from you, Alex, because I think your interview stunned people. Do the wind turbines actually do what they're meant to do? Can we power our country to any degree from these windmills?
Absolutely not. This is the whole problem. So the Renewable Energy Act of 2000 that the Liberal Party introduced into Parliament, that set up the renewable energy subsidies. And one of the objectives of the Act is that the energy source has to reduce emissions within the electricity grid. And wind turbines cannot do that. They require base load to back them up, because wind energy is intermittent and unreliable. So the wind is blowing and the energy is up and down, up and down, up and down. And the grid has to be kept steady at all times. It's really difficult to balance the grid steadily. And if it isn't balanced steadily, then we have blackouts and appliance blowouts. So it's really serious to make sure that the grid is balanced at all times, and wind turbines can't do this. So your coal-fired power station takes 24 to 48 hours to get up to heat, and it cannot ramp up and down. It can only let steam on and off as wind comes into the grid. So we're not reducing emissions in the electricity grid at all. Wind turbines aren't fit for purpose.
Yeah, you I think we talked about hydro and rooftop solar. Can you talk about that, Alex? Rooftop hydro and why wind turbines can't do what those renewable sources of energy can do?
Yeah, so one of the things that occurred before the Four Corners episode was the ABC put out an article in the morning to get more viewers for their episode on Four Corners. And in it, I was quoted, and it was very cunning because they said that I had said that renewables are government-sponsored fraud. Now, that's correct. The government-sponsored fraud was in quotations, and that's correct. That's what I said, but I did not say renewables. I said wind turbines. It's a very specific, dirty tactic that they use because wind turbines hide behind solar at all times. And that's why they make it about renewables. I'm not anti-renewables. Hydro can produce on demand, and rooftop solar delivers where it is needed. Wind turbines cannot do that. They can't reduce emissions. They can't produce the electricity where it's needed. Like, can you even begin to imagine the line losses if they're building them 20 kilometres offshore?
So can I ask Alex, what do you think is behind it then? Why are they building so many? Backed on what you said in your first interview.
Money.
It's only about money. It's follow the money. It is all about the subsidy. The subsidy.
And where does the subsidy lead?
To foreign companies. So we pay for the subsidy in our electricity bills, and it's all going offshore to foreign companies. It's $15.6 billion per year that we are paying every Australian household. So that's not just your taxpayers, that's your pensioners, your schools, your hospitals, your small businesses. Everyone is paying that amount, and it's all going offshore to foreign-owned $2 shell companies.
I noticed that Four Corners didn't talk about offshore companies or those subsidies, did they? Not one little mention.
No, because this information kills the industry.
So last night then, really, the national carrier that is paid for with our taxpayers' money was used to attack a whistleblower or whistleblowers in order to protect the subsidies going to foreign countries. Subsidies that we pay with our taxpayers' money in a time where our country is completely broken, people are struggling to put food on the table. We're putting these wind turbines up to make foreign companies rich on our hard-earned savings.
That's correct.
It's astounding too, because I noticed they had the other two gentlemen in the report, Colin and Steve, and they actually ended up pitting them against each other, like that they weren't united. Because one of them supports fossil fuels, the other, this sort of thing. And they tried to do the same thing. Of course, Martine did participate in an interview with Four Corners. Alex didn't. But Angus Grigg, the reporter there from Four Corners, he most certainly tried to pit both you, Alex, and Martine against each other, especially when they wanted to talk about the Waubra Foundation. And their underhanded tactics, clearly, we can see through them. But Alex, what are your thoughts there about them trying to pit you against each other? Clearly, we can see you united.
Yeah.
What did you think there?
Soul sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Martine and I are coming from the same place. Our hearts are in the right place. We have genuine concern for our farmers and for our marine life. And what's going on is criminal. It's environmental destruction that should not be allowed to occur. And the reaming of the Australian economy to foreign companies is just disgraceful. Like the price of electricity is absolutely one of the baselines of our economy, because a country with expensive electricity is a country in poverty.
Can I ask Martine, could you give us some background on you, Martine? I've met Alex. How did you get into basically questioning wind turbines?
So I have to be honest, a long time ago when it first came to WA down at Albany, I thought it was, oh, wow, this is great. This is different. It's like, whatever. They're being decommissioned now, the ones that were put in there, and they're very small compared to what is proposed now. Like these are like super turbines. And so when I saw where they were going in, and then I started doing my research, I came on board and joined Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay. And my background is in campaigning, as well as my background is in marine science. I studied coastal zone management. So I'd already been down this whole road about how unique our coral reef system is along the WA coastline because of Lewin Current, and that I know with turbidity and the mixing and interruption of the turbidity along the coastline, if any of these proposals went forward, let alone all of them, could have this cascade effect. So what it is that it changes the way that nutrients disperse through the water. And then I started sort of researching a bit more, got in touch with Kyle, who started the page, and I just said, we need to hit this hard. I've got some background in doing this stuff, and we're just a community group. We're hardcore community passionate people that are in here to protect WA coastline and oceans, because we are salty people through and through. My nickname's the Mermaid, so I wear that with pride. So the thing is that I came on board with Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay, and from consultation.
You just said no.
Oh, they
Is that
just tried
right?
to make you disappear.
Bring it on. Yeah, so I turned up with the posters.
We just
and
got up to
handouts.
Save Geographic Bay, and then you vanished. So
Okay.
go off from there.
Okay, so I came on to Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay. My background is marine science as well as campaign coordination. So I'd done that over in Canada and in Australia. So knowing the area really well, I'd studied the WA coastline and how the interdynamics of the Lewin Current, how we have amazing endemic species here that are not found anywhere else in the world, that it's an area where it is predominantly fairly safe for whales to come migrate and nurse along our coastline, but this was going to have a catastrophic effect because the interruption alone of the Lewin Current coming down the coastline directly affects migration path, the rock lobster industry, all of our demersal and endemic fish, and actually it affects our entire biodiversity here, because the warm waters coming down from the north, which is the most unusual north to south current in the world, because we have a gap between the top of our continent and the equator. So it flows through the equatorial regions and comes down the coastline. Whereas in other continents, it's always a south upwelling. So it's a very, very different kind of biodynamics that you have here. So what it is that because it's so unique, we have species here that aren't found anywhere else. And any interruption into that, like I said, is a cascade effect. So cutting through the limestone, we have what's called lineal reef systems, where we have cool water and subtropical temperate coral reefs along here. So they intermix. So we have sort of a bit further north, a subtropical, then they're temperate, and then we have cool water corals all growing together because we have this unusual mixing of warm and cool water here along the WA coast. Because of that, it has the most incredible coral bommies and species of fish and marine diversity. Through cutting through, which is what they're going to do, once they put down these cement blocks, substrates, footings, whatever you want to call them, they're a 500 square meter cement blight on the ocean floor that's going to have to ground down areas because it's not barren out there at all. People that go out and fish in this area know that these lineal reef systems are full of coral reef, and then intermittently there's these huge areas of bommies and other species there. So it's not just sand out there. By the time you go down and grind it down, what happens is you get this soft limestone substrate will actually start to just completely disintegrate. So we're talking about the total collapse of a coral reef system if there's so much interruption so that migration of the fish cannot happen, that the substrate is interrupted to such a point where the hot water that's feeding constantly in and out the turbines changes the water temperature around the turbines. Also, then you've got these high voltage cables that are going to be channeled because they already know the way that they're mitigating the electrical magnetic fields, the EMF fields in the water, is that they want to drop them down 3 meters. So they're going to cut down into the substrate 3 meters and dredge that whole area. So you've got dredging, you've got coral reef systems that are going to be cut through and completely separated. And this fragmentation of the biodiversity in this area is where we've got real big problems, because rock lobster migrate, other fish species migrate. And when you've got big interruptions because of not only the wind turbines, but these high voltage underwater cables, which interrupt the movement of benthic shellfish and clams, crabs. This is well documented. There's a lot of articles you can find on this. So they stop these animals from being able to navigate. So that means they can't molt, they can't mate. And then there's the interruption of their eggs hatching. So then you've got all kinds of issues with reproduction cycles. So we're talking about very, very serious interruption. We've got the WA rock lobster industry, one of the most sustainable. Now, that's the word that's missing out of this whole entire equation, is sustainability. That used to be the biodiversity, sustainability used to be the foundation of how we move forward in a lot of the planning years ago, and that's been completely thrown out the window. And that's where the precautionary principles been thrown out the window as well, because it's all about this green renewables agenda. But it's like, well, let's have renewables, but this is not sustainable green renewables at all. They're not green.
I find
Did
it
you tell
absolutely
Four Corners that? Sorry, Robin. Did you tell Four Corners this?
Yeah, this is what they cut out. They didn't
This
show
is what
any of
they
this
cut out.
information. So this was
This
about
is
a
what they
90-minute
cut out.
interview that got carved down. He's a very aggressive individual, Angus.
Yeah.
And
Angus.
that was picked
Naughty
up by a
Angus.
lot of people. His interview style, what you didn't see is his arm throwing himself across the table at a woman. Lovely kind of thing. And I pulled them up on that, and I said that I put it in writing that that kind of aggression is not really seen as acceptable in this day and age, not only just towards a woman, but just in general.
What do you mean?
That, you know, he's like, when he was like doing this very aggressive hand gesture towards me across the table the entire time.
I'm not sure if we got it.
Yeah.
Let me play this. I'm not sure if it's on this one. Let's have a look.
It with evidence day after day that whales are washing up on the shores of the United States.
Not a single shred of evidence that offshore wind farms harm whales in the world. There are real legitimate concerns in those communities that are being weaponised. The whales swim very close to shore, so they're not going to be anywhere near the 20, 30, 60 kilometres where the wind farms are being proposed. When you're building the wind farm, you also need to be very careful about the timing of when you're doing certain activities, so it's not as whales are passing by and affecting their sonar.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get it. But I just remembered something else in regards to that. Now, you've studied marine biology.
Marine science, yeah.
Marine science. She says that the whales don't go out that far, that they swim close to the shore, so they're never going to go 20 or 30 k's. Now, I'm no marine biologist, but I'm like, I've seen plenty of documentaries where they're in the ocean. They're migrating in the ocean. And I've never heard, like, it's supposed to be a beautiful sight.
Tom, it's really deep out there. It scares them. They can't see the bottom.
Drown.
They get scared, man. They saw Finding Nemo. They know those big eating things are down there. They stay where they can. If they can't touch the bottom, they're not happy. Robin, sorry, you were going to say a question.
Well, just in regards to Angus there and the questions that were framed for the different people he was speaking to, not only you, Martine, but everybody else. He kept trying to lead people into complaining about So the way he would ask people questions who were pro wind turbines is to suggest to them that the people who are not pro-wind turbines are concerned about the visibility of them. But whenever he spoke to either it was a farmer, a shop owner who were anti-wind turbine, they didn't mention anything about visibility. And same with you, Martine. It was nothing to do with visibility. It was all to do about the environment. And yet Angus kept talking to the pro-turbine people and leading them in that direction. And then, the only positive thing they could say was how much money they would get, how much the farmers would get, or how much the local bowling club would get, and all these sorts of things. So I find it astounding. We've just listened to you, Martine, for, I don't know, a good 6-7 minutes there at least, talking about the environment, and yet Four Corners failed to put anything in there about the environment and just kept trying to navigate everybody towards, these anti-turbine people don't like the look of them. No, that's not it at all. We've just heard you talk, Martine.
You just reminded me too, when I was reading between the lines with Four Corners, it's basically they're just buying people off. And that's why I replayed it twice. And there's no mention that any wind turbines are going on the lawn bowls. Like, I could be totally wrong, because I don't understand why they're getting money, because she's just saying, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. But no mention that it's going on their land. But all the other farmers that were taking on the wind turbines, it actually mentioned how much money they would be getting for the wind turbines. But the lawn bowls, there's no mention. It's just like, that's so great. They paid for our insurance. They paid for a new fryer. They paid for this. But I'm like, well, what are you giving in return? Are you, have you promised a wind turbine on their land? So I'm very suspicious. It's just like they're buying everyone off. Where
on the bowling green would they put it? Like, because those blades are pretty low. You don't want to hear that your grandmother had her head chopped off, but it's okay because it's good for the environment, I mean, it's just, where would you put it? You can't put it on the roof. So I don't understand where you could do it.
So they are offering different communities money payback, of course. That's part of what they're saying.
For what though? For what? Just that
correct.
Supporting
they go
them.
out to
Basically,
society and they support them.
That's what it is.
So they're buying influencers.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So
that's what I thought.
community influencers. Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah. I
So,
get it.
and you said that from the beginning. Sorry.
We've got an example from Kalbarri in Western Australia.
Yeah.
The Shire of Northampton, if the wind farm is allowed to go ahead, it's onshore turbines and offshore turbines. The Shire of Kalbarri will be paid $1 million per gigawatt, and the proposed project is 6 gigawatts. So that's $6 million per year going to the Shire of Northampton. Thanks very much.
For what though?
So
it's the same thing. For
the Shire of Northampton. Yeah, exactly.
It's a bribe.
So that the Shire of Northampton will support the project. But what they don't understand is that Kalbarri will be completely desecrated if that project goes ahead.
Yeah.
It'll totally change the culture of the whole town. We've just got back from a community engagement there, and that was what came out of this session. I've been up once before with Alex, and this session when I went up, what came out was actually really shocking, that they're having real issues with underwater ground bores. So what it is that a lot of bores along the coastline there are being, they've been too much taken out, and they're having issues with having to drop down bores to deeper and deeper levels. And then that's around the Kalbarri area, and then in the town itself, they're starting to have magnesium flakes appear on the grass in the morning when the bore retic has gone on. And if you understand what that means, is that the salt water is now leaching back into where the freshwater levels were underground, and now they're having issues with whether it's going to be potable water. So
really don't like Martine, do they?
Mm.
You hit those
Oh,
words,
she's frozen
Martine,
now.
It's every
Oh.
time I talk.
every time you talk.
Astounding.
Not going to work.
Mm.
Anyway, so what it is that there are major issues about water up there. As I can imagine, if we've been up to Kalbarri, you know that it's a very wild, desolate kind of area,
it's
but
dry.
it's beautiful, it's pristine, it's got this culture all of its own that's very much based on just not on the ocean, but the fishing and this whole culture of surfing and this laid back idea of existing there that's a little bit to the left of what everyone in mainstream is doing. It's a place to sort of escape and go back to a time that's almost like back in the 70s and 80s, even though it's really developed and it has advanced. It's just kept this sense of honesty and integrity about it, which is so beautiful, what makes it so special. So now, if this went to go ahead, what's up there is the green ammonia plant that's going to go there. That needs access to water. So they want to have access to aquifers. We're talking about industry having access to aquifers yet again. This is the same thing that happened with Coca-Cola, right? So why is it that we're allowing corporations to have water above the people, the residents, the electors that already live there? Why would we be putting these communities at risk for something that's not only a failed system as far as like the wind turbine situation, but when you've got liquefied green ammonia, it's so toxic that if it's spilled into the ocean, we're talking about absolutely catastrophic events that would happen down our coastline with coral reef systems. And people are telling me, oh, it's so safe, we do it here. It's like, have you seen the coastline of Kalbarri? They had more than 10-meter swells the other day. There's no way you would have been able to dock something anywhere and have a ship being able to be loaded with liquefied green ammonia. Just no way.
Can I ask Alex, how, what was the reaction to the interview you did with us? Have you, because I mean, it just went everywhere. I saw it on Telegram. I had people sending me, "Have you seen this?" I go, "Yeah, I've seen that." But there's how, how was the reaction to you?
It was actually really a really positive reaction, and I'm so grateful to you, Michael, that could occur.
I just held the
Obviously,
microphone.
yeah, I've been working against this really corrupt industry for a really long time, and like a lot of the time, I really had to hide behind the senators that I was working for, and for my protection, because when you stand in the way of a multi-billion-dollar international industry like this, you're really at enormous risk. So I spent a lot of time hiding behind the senators that were my bosses, and when you interviewed me was just after my mum had died, and I couldn't do anything while mum was unwell and a sitting duck. And so you managed to get me just at the right moment when I was like, okay, unfortunately, mum's passed. And now, boom. Because I don't have children that I have to protect, and I don't have to hide anymore. And so I'm doing my best to expose this industry for what it is and speak up, because this is a public education program, or process, sorry. Because people believe that windmills, they believe that wind turbines are windmills, and the politicians believe that they bring votes. But this is government-sponsored fraud, and they are not windmills. They are industrial power generators that are very high in the sky. And they're causing
Can I ask you too,
extreme
when you
destruction.
say it's a business or an industry, it's not really it's a rort, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it's a
not, because an
massive
industry,
international rort.
self-funded industry looks after itself, but this is just a rort that we pay. And so we used to have coal-fired power stations, and I know everyone rallies against them, but we had low power, which is the reason we became a wealthy
Low-cost power,
country, because
yep.
we have, yeah. Now our power bills are through the roof and probably going higher. And we're paying for that because we're installing these things that are actually putting us in an economic decline, really.
Exactly.
The-
So basically, when I first started working with the farmers and exposing the health effects and what was going on, it was like smashing my head against a brick wall because the industry had us shut down at every turn. And I learnt that there is no such thing as human rights because one of the human rights is to sleep. And when you live next to a wind turbine, you can't. You have constantly interrupted sleep and you wake up in a, I think it's not the right word, but it's like in a frightened state because the infrasound and low frequency sound is affecting the brainstem. So you are jolted awake in a frightened state constantly during the night. And it's something to do, like I'm no expert on the noise, but it's something to do with, you know, how fire alarms not only have a really loud audible noise, but they also have some kind of sound system that will jolt you awake if you can't hear it. So it's a similar thing. And this is what the neighbours were saying, is that they kept waking repeatedly in a frightened state. So that's one of your basic human rights being attacked right there. And we went down the health effects line, we went down the human rights line, we couldn't get anywhere. And I've learned over the 8 years of trying to expose the corruption in the industry that you have to attack the economics of it. You have to follow the money and you have to expose the amount of money that's involved.
Tom, that's for you, that comment. We'll move on. So Chris Robertson has seen humpback and minke whales 20 nautical miles off Lord Howe Island. In the Pacific between Sydney and Fiji, the miles are migrating ocean creatures. Yeah, there you go. So that it's a thing that they do. You notice they do. There's no evidence that the whales like to go out that route. It's just condescending bullshit. You know what you're talking about? It's a whale.
And like we heard her speak saying, you know, they don't go out 30 k's into the they don't go past 20 k. They just swim. Mate,
Yeah, they get dropped off, Tom. They get dropped off. That's why.
But she's supposed to be what is she? The CEO of the
the CEO of the Australian Conservation Society.
Yeah.
Really?
Hey, can I just? I think this is the koala one. Can I play this? Which was the photographer talking, and he took some video. I think this is the right one.
Yeah, so we've just pulled over by the side of the road. Lo and behold, a koala. This is Lotus Creek. Beautiful, beautiful intact forest. Stunning native grasses. Yeah, look at the beautiful orchids up here in the trees, in the ironbarks. Look at that. It's just beggars belief. Absolute insanity. This should be a koala national park, not a fucking wind farm. And we're going to carve it up for green, renewable energy. This is just
how cool is that?
Fucking insane. So, waiting for the dozers to arrive, and once they're here, I can never, ever come back here.
Only in Australia could we evolve the laziest looking animal. I mean, they're so cute, but look at them. He's sitting there going, "G'day. How can I help you? You want some gum trees? You got some gum leaves?" I mean, they're just, and yet, you know, they're amazing. That was really interesting. So they did have people who were against it.
It just makes me so mad about the koalas because they did the same thing in Crudine Ridge in New South Wales. It's just out of Orange. So they decided that they were going to build the Crudine Ridge wind farm, and that is in koala country. And on the sides of the roads going into the area, it was protected old growth forest. Not only was it protected old growth forest, but the trees actually had little metal tags saying what type of tree they were because the trees were protected. But oh no, along comes the wind industry and decides that they're going to build a wind farm called Crudine Ridge Wind Farm in that koala country, and they cleared 60 hectares of old growth protected forest and took out the koala population in the area.
Where are the greenies? Where are the greenies with that one, honestly?
That's what I don't get.
Did
That's
they
what.
repopulate the koalas? Did they move them somewhere else or what?
Oh, no doubt they would have suggested some kind of mitigation measure. So there's something really dodgy that occurred, and I won't remember the dates off the top of my head. But basically, they decided to declare koalas as vulnerable on a particular date. And because the Crudine Ridge development application went in prior to that date, then they decided that those koalas could not be protected. It was the most dodgy manoeuvre by the Department of Environment under the EPBC Act.
So what, they changed the date?
That's gross.
So, no, there was a specific date, and I can't remember when it was. Sorry, guys. But there was a specific date when the koalas were declared vulnerable across Australia under the EPBC Act. And the development application for the Crudine Ridge wind farm, that application went in just prior to them being declared vulnerable. So basically, the Department of Environment repeatedly said, and the Environment Minister at the time, that they couldn't do anything to protect these koalas because the application had come in prior to that date. What you were referring to, Martine, is there was a particular letter that was written by the farmers that basically pulled up the Environment Minister at the time under his own legislation with the EPBC Act, and what he did was backdate his approval signature prior to the letter being written.
Isn't that fraud? That's fraud to me.
Absolutely.
Of course
That's
it's
fraud.
fraud.
Alex
Of
or
course it is.
Martine, there's a question there for you both. Could Alex
Okay,
or
okay.
Martine comment on why WA's first wind farm at Esperance has been dismantled and not repaired or replaced? Hi,
Yeah,
Sharon. How you going? Nice boyfriend, Sharon. Supposedly this was a prime wind spot.
So the eastern states used our first wind farms, which was Esperance and Albany. They used our Western Australian wind farms to deny the health effects. And the reason that they could do that is that those early ones in Albany, and I think it was called 10 Mile in Esperance, were only 600 kilowatts. So they're absolutely tiny compared to the ones that they're building now. The ones that they have currently in Esperance are 6 megawatts. So that's like more than 6 times the size. And the ones that they're proposing for offshore are 15 megawatts, which are just fucking enormous. I don't actually know how that's going to work. I suggest that it's
300 meters above the sea line. Like, so they're going to rise 300 meters above the sea level. That's
300 meters.
insane. Yeah.
Apparently, the area is supposed to
astronomical.
span nearly 8,000 square kilometres. That's just the one in Geograph Bay.
7,500, 7.5, yeah, 7.6, yeah.
So the Albany wind farm and the Esperance 10 Mile wind farm, they were decommissioned like at the end of their useful lifespan. And then Esperance has since built a new wind farm. And I don't exactly know how that's working because they're on a microgrid, so they're disconnected from the Swiss somehow. I can't comment more about that, but the decommissioning is like basically one of the discussions that has to come up, because when these wind farms are built, there's one company that comes along and gets the development application approval and gets the contract signed with the host landholders, and then they pretty much immediately on sell, and there's another company that comes in and is there for the construction, and then they on sell, and there's another company that controls it, usually from a desktop in a foreign country. So you can imagine when the farmers ring up and complain about the noise, it's going nowhere because who gives a shit what's happening on the other side of the world?
They're getting some poorly paid person in Pakistan to take the question.
Exactly.
Janine Nunn, they don't, Michael. They bulldoze over the top of them. It's revolting. I've seen footage. They don't give a shit. They're vulnerable because they kill them. Janine, could you send us any links to that footage? We're happy to play that footage. That'd be interesting to get up. So if you could find that footage.
I found some. I haven't got. I've got it on the computer downstairs, but I kept one for a future WTF episode where I've actually got footage of them bulldozing trees. I don't know if it's in regards to wind turbines, but they're flattening land, and you can see koalas in the trees going down with the trees. I've got footage of that. I can confirm that. Yeah, I can confirm that. Yeah, so I'll find it. Yeah, for sure.
So to save our environment, we're bulldozing koalas.
Yeah. So like Martine said before, where are the environmentalists for that? All at once they're like, oh, well, we'll take the collateral because it's going to save the planet. I thought they'd be fucking tying themselves to the trees for saving a koala, but nowhere to be seen. I don't
They
get
got all
it.
that money. They don't have the time to send in a group to just capture the koalas and move them on. I mean, it's not like
Really?
they're cheaters. They're not going to run away, you know.
Yeah,
That's
it's
insane.
absolutely astounding. You know, with like I'd already mentioned, you know, they weren't really concerned in Four Corners as to bringing up the environment or talking about that in any great detail, whether it was onshore, offshore wind turbines. And they made a really big point from start to finish, and maybe this is my perception of the program last night, Wind Wars on Four Corners, that in actual fact it's activists such as Alex and Martine and Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay and all the other wonderful groups that is responsible for the delayed development of these wind farms, and you're actually threatening people's livelihoods and access to payments because your activism is and misinformation. They did bring that up in regard. They wanted to show your Facebook page as well, Martin.
Like to clarify that in a minute.
Hang on.
And you're responsible for the delayed development.
Hopefully, get some footage and show some coral that's kicking around out there.
I think this is it.
A bit further along, but yeah.
Plans are underway.
Yeah, I think it is. I cut it, edited it at the wrong area.
With Martine Shepherd and Susan Taylor-Reese.
I'm one of the campaign coordinators for Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay. Anyone heard of our group?
It's grown to more than 6,000 members in just a few months.
Once you find out the damage that this will do to our marine environment, there's no way you can be pro-wind turbines.
We hold a platform and represent all of WA, and we are united with all of Australia, so that's not NIMBY.
Their opposition to renewables is accompanied by a scepticism of climate change.
Do you believe that human-induced climate change is dangerous?
I think that focusing on reducing CO2 because that's the cause of climate change is very questionable, because we know that CO2 is an essential part of the greening process of this planet. And to say that...
So you don't accept the science of climate change?
No, I think that
there's
net
the hand
zero talk,
movement.
and I think that saying carbon neutral is actually crazy.
Shouldn't you disclose that you don't accept the science on climate change in commenting
don't.
on whether or not there should be a wind farm
I think
here?
it's totally irrelevant.
This post from Suzanne is clearly misleading. Even if the offshore wind farm goes ahead, this is not the view you'll ever see from the beaches of Geograph Bay.
Very
This is one of
agitated,
Martine's
isn't he?
posts.
Bit
It was
agitated there,
actually
Angus.
blocked by independent fact checkers. Says here that the post had no basis in fact.
Alongside legitimate concerns about marine life, a post on everything from COVID conspiracies to climate change denialism and how offshore wind...
I got to stop that.
Yeah, that's it.
I want to hear the rest, but I'm just saying he's relying on a Facebook fact checker.
Fact checker. Yeah.
As the thing.
Not many people believe the fact.
You serious?
Do you want to hear what my reply was, which wasn't aired? So he said, you know, Martin, you put a post there that fact checkers removed. It's like, and I just laughed, went, fact checkers? I said, yeah, that's like, I don't credit them. They're neither experts or scientists. And I said, they're probably someone's in mum's basement on a keyboard warrior, just like, hey, getting paid for the agenda. And what he didn't show was that the article that was taken down said that this was about the footings of the turbines, and it said this was independently checked by fact checkers that it's incorrect because the amount of Rio bar in the Rio bar that's used in the footings, the amount was incorrect.
Oh, lordy,
Independently
lordy.
That's what it
checked.
was. That. And I went,
Independently
does that
checked
mean it wasn't
by
enough Rio
Facebook
bar?
fact checkers.
There was too much Rio bar. The footings are going to be bigger. Like, what is that? Like, it's just like it was discredited because they said there was just. And I just looked at him and went, what?
I
That's
had
embarrassing.
AAP call me up wanting to do an actual. They sent me an email, said we want to do a fact check on some interview you've done, loads, and we're just wondering who your sources are. And it said, well, you know, I can't really reveal my sources, but if you want to find them, why don't you do what I do? His name's Mike Hunt. So just go down to one of the local malls or a government department and just go, has anyone seen Mike Hunt? Anyone here? Anyone seen Mike Hunt? And that's what I sent him back. Fact check that. Sorry to take you to another place, but a fact checker. I mean, these people have been proven. The ones that were coming out of the RMIT that the university was paying, which it goes against everything a university should stand for. They were kids. They were kids earning a different a different extra money to fact check stuff. They don't. I mean,
I think it says a lot about Four Corners audience because they would only show that and go, "Ooh, see Tom or see John, it's been fact checked by the fact checkers at Four Corners. Must be right." So it says more about Four Corners audience than anything.
Do you want to know what my clap back to him was? My actual response when he asked about fact checkers, I said, you mean like fact checkers have been wrong for the last like 3-4 years about all the truth that's been going out? And I said, and now it's just. And what happened was about an hour before it went live is one of the juice manufacturers got banned.
Oh, yeah.
So he hadn't checked that. He didn't know that it happened. It's what I dropped. And that's when I threw him for a loop. And I went, you mean like fact checkers have been saying this juice stuff is all safe and now it's been banned, Angus? You mean like that? And he was like, what? What are you talking about? I said, oh, Angus. He said, you need to get your finger on the pulse. I said, you know, like these juice manufacturers have been banned. Did you not know that? It just happened today. And he just went blank and then got like furious. Bit more enraged, I think. So again, that's why they didn't show. Yeah,
very
let's reframe it.
Don't you think? He seems very agitated for he seems very high strung for an Angus. When you think of an Angus, it's sort of a you're doing that boy. You know, he's just sort of a bigger, sort of more easygoing, sort of John Wayne with a Scottish accent. Not a
all I can say is once the cameras stopped rolling, because I picked my time and, I had a piece of Angus. I'm not a steak eater, but, you know, had a piece of Angus.
Piece of Angus.
Yeah. Sliced that and diced that I did. I told him what a disgrace he was. And speaking, so I just told him exactly what I thought of him once the camera stopped rolling because he was baiting me the whole time. He actually asked the question about being a client. Don't you think you need to be honest about the fact that, you know, about your belief systems on climate change? The first question that he fired off about that, my response was, can you please explain whether you're talking about anthropogenic climate change or whether you're talking about natural cycle climate change, because that's a very generalized term. And if you're not speaking in correct terminology, I can't really respond to that in a more scientific way. That was my response. And they did not show that. And then he kept coming back to the climate change. And that's when Suzanne got agitated. She said, it's not important, or it's like, it's irrelevant. And it's like, because the whole time we had talked about the marine science and where the environment's going to be degraded, and every bit of that got dropped on the editing floor. So it'd be really interesting to see if we get a copy of the unedited stuff, because it was a very long interview. What you saw was the very end of the interview, where after almost 90 minutes of being aggressively interrogated, that you could see the look on my face. It was like my seriously resting bitch face, where I was literally holding my tongue. As a country girl, there's a point that you've crossed the line and you're ready to get up some dude at the bar that's being belligerent, and you're either going to push him off his bar stool or kick him in the Angus nuts.
Before we go on, can you just tell us, without attacking us, what is your view of climate change?
I have been trying to look at things in an objective way of looking at historically. There's been massive cycles on this planet. And I think that because we aren't looking at things sustainably, we haven't been looking at those long-term trends. And that's what I talked about, that farmers understand this really quite well. They're saying that these similar kind of cycles that we're having right now kind of happened around 40 years ago. And they hadn't really put measures in place. So, you know, there are farmers that said now, they've told me personally, I could have brought a bore down and made sure that I had enough bore water coming into my dams to drought proof. So we need to be looking at these measures long-term and sustainable. But do I think of it in a anthropogenic, that the human beings are the ones on the planet that are causing all this climate disaster and catastrophe? Well, if me driving my car to the shop to go and buy my food, and I live a very simple kind of life, if that's what's causing a catastrophic effect on this planet, then I'm pretty concerned. Maybe they should stop chopping down those trees and putting those other industrialized stuff there, because once you start taking away trees and the real greening effect of this planet, which is part of the carbon sink. So the ocean actually sequestrates more carbon than the land. And when you understand that, then you're like, wait a second, what? And it's like, yeah, the ocean absorbs more CO2 than the land does. But of course, now it's become more probably disproportionate because there's so much land clearing. And now that we're having like kind of drought conditions, whether that's whatever's causing that, let's look at this from a perspective of science investigation. And like you said, open dialogue. Has this happened historically? Let's listen to farmers. These people have been on the land for a long time. Let's talk to forestry people. Let's talk to these individuals that are really, really wise, that are what I regard as layman term experts. Some of them are like have done degrees in this area, and others have just lived this lifestyle and lived and breathed looking after the environment or in the ocean and knowing what's going on with the marine habitat. Like fishermen, you only have to ask them, oh, how's the salmon run going this year? Oh, it's a bit late, or it came in early. It's like, right, that there tells you that there's been a bit of a diversion from the norm, and you're always going to have a bit of a diversion. But when it's a big one, yeah, let's investigate, have those conversations. But as far as I'm not I wouldn't call myself a climate change denier at all. But what I do call myself is someone who wants to investigate why we have these climate change cycles on the planet. What is causing it? And if we're trying to mitigate it in a certain way and it's not working, why isn't it working? So let's
Can you
be
leave that
really
there, Mark?
scientific.
You put that. Just going to put this interview back here. Facebook post on last night, Four Corners. Four Corners limited who can comment on this post. On Yankees. Now, can I tell you another demographic people never think about? Because I've got a great mate who's talked to me about it, but I've been talking to others too. There's a lot of people out there who make a living now cutting grass, you know, from Jim's lawn mowing to other mowers. Several of these gardeners have told me they're going to have to increase their charges because the grass is growing thicker and faster. It's taking them longer to cut lawns, and they're still charging for prices so this makes you wonder. And I've been across the Nullarbor 3 times, I think, in the last 18 months, or both 6 times. The last 2 times I went across, they had the greatest wheat crop, I think, for decades. It was booming. The silos are all full. They've just it's all under tarpaulins. They can't keep up. How well the wheat's growing. I wonder why, you know. And it could be all the cows farting, of course. You know, that's helping the wheat. You know, I'm farting. I'm doing my bit to help the wheat, but not as much as cows. But I'll try. But thing is, don't you see that there's a madness here? Like on here, we're taking the piss, we're having a comment, but there's like, you don't believe in the science. It's like, yeah.
It's
maybe
like one big fairy tale. One big fairy tale where
madness to it. You see, they're agitated. It's That's not a reporter. That reporter's got to be. I just one thing. Tell you this early on in the pandemic. I tell this story a lot, but it's important. There was a chemistry student on the steps of Parliament where people used to come because they were so lost. She was a young girl. If she ever out there, if you're listening, I'd love to talk to you again. I never got your name. She was sitting there as she was completely lost and baffled because she was this close to finishing her chemistry degree. And then the following year, she wanted to do a PhD, but they wanted her to take the jabs. And she had questions. She wanted to know what was in it and other, she had questions. She was told by her family and the lecturers, sometimes you don't question. She's a fucking scientist. Her only job is to question. That's why we're training her. So you go out there and you ask questions and try to find answers, and they're telling her, sometimes you don't question. My heart broke for her because you could see she was so lost. And then when you see someone like Angus, no offense, Angus, feel free to come on the show, mate. I'm just interested in this tension, It just... Why can't we question? Why couldn't we? They never had a debate about COVID on the ABC ever. They never had anyone locked down and someone coming up like Desmond Matthias going, well, I'm not sure, and have a healthy debate. So as a community, we could see, okay, we're going to do this. We've heard this and this. No, they just went with the government. They were the choir of the propaganda choir. And now it seems to be the same with climate change. There's no way that the science is settled. The science is not settled. Look at the Fauci hearing the other day. It's not settled. It's a religion. It's a dogma, And you seem to be
Alex?
like a highly strung priest, Agnes. Sorry, Alex, what were you saying?
I was just going to say one of my favorite sayings is there are no stupid questions. There are only stupid people that don't ask questions.
Or stupid people that ask that same question 10 times because the answer that I gave them in the interview didn't suit their narrative or wasn't friendly.
You're ruining your makeup, Tom. Just,
Yeah, they can't have people asking questions because that then that means you have a discussion, and then when you have a discussion, it means that you can go back in time and just thinking about it as a fairy tale. If you go back to the beginning of the story of not the let's save the environment greenies back in the 80s and the 90s, we've left that back there. That doesn't exist anymore. We've moved into a different fairy tale, and if we have a discussion and go back to the beginning of the first person that's top of mind is Al Gore, Mr. Al Gore. If we go back to that place, then people have to justify and give evidence for why we've ended up in this position, and they can't have that because they need people. With Alex talking about government sponsored fraud, they can't have people delaying their development. So they can't go back in the fairy tale. They can't have people asking questions, and they can't have people discussing it. You've got to believe it, and that's the jerkiness and the we can't have that happen because we've got to move forward with this net zero 2030 Great Reset, and all the little pieces of that Great Reset. We have to adhere to it, and if you don't adhere to it, you're a denier this and a denier that and a cooker and all these sorts of things, so
that's actually the answer that I gave when he talked about that. And I said my concern is that previously it was marketed as what was it, planet warming, like greenhouse. Oh my God, my
global
brain just
warming. I don't mention
global
that anymore.
warming. Thank you.
They don't
First
say that
it was
anymore.
marketed this, and before that it was an ice age that was coming in the 70s. Then it was like the end of the oil era. Then it was like this. And I said, there's been all these marketing strategies of fear-based thinking and a narrative that's influenced the science. I can tell you now, when I was at university, I have to be really careful what I say here, but we had research vessels that were bringing data, live data, onto our data sets that were the complete opposite of what we were being taught at uni. So when we were going, wait a sec, but our data sets have been saying this, and this, it's actually cooling. The waters are cooling, this is cooling, that's not actually having a global warming effect, and there's not going to be this catastrophe. It's not looking like it's going to that. What do you think happened?
That's exactly the reason. why they need to, in particular, why Four Corners attempted to smear Alex, because you present information that is contrary to what they want people to believe to move on and achieve their objective. So, you know, it's the same thing. That's why they had to talk about you the way they did on Four Corners.
Well,
That's
the question
exactly
you
correct.
posed, Alex, is one, do they work? Are we spending a lot of money and actually doing more damage to our environment or something that doesn't work? If they do work, where's the evidence? Show us.
Mm.
Preferably you showed us in our power bill to how it's come down because we're not burning coal, and why it's so cheap now, you know what I mean? Rather than having old women and old people at home wondering how they're going to heat their house in the winter. So it's just show us, and let us have a healthy debate on maybe some Q&A, you know, where you actually have a debate, which is not a debate between someone speaking the truth and the others just condescending going,
Yeah.
which is what they do.
Yeah.
What they do.
Even Stan Grant has now come out saying that it basically was fixed. He's come out now and said it was fixed, that they basically had one person and the rest of the panel was in such a way that they would just attack that one person. So, you know,
So it was
now
fixed when they kicked that young man off. They
That was
knew he
just
was going to
horrible.
ask that question, and the reason Stan hesitated is because Stan probably didn't want to do it. Feel free to come on, Stan. You want to talk about it, and then they kicked that young man off when he wanted to have his say on a free speech platform, which is what the show's about to be.
Yeah.
So here we are, controlling the narrative. This is called propaganda. And all we're trying to do here on this show is allow these two women to speak, which means I should shut up and let them do it. But anyway, Alex, we have 10 minutes left. We'll go to you, and then we'll go to Martine, and I'm just going to shut up.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak freely. It's just awesome. Like the last time Four Corners attacked one of my friends, they did successfully shut it down. So it's really awesome that we're now, 10 years later, in a situation where you guys have built platforms where we can speak. So I'm so grateful for that. And Robin, you mentioned Al Gore, and I stuck my head in my hands because that was at a time when Julia Gillard was our Prime Minister, and the cost-benefit analysis of wind turbines, which has never been done, but was starting to be, it was starting to infiltrate the way of thinking. Julia Gillard decided that she would just bring Al Gore out to Parliament House and have him talk to everybody. And then she started her Clean Energy Finance Corporation, which basically was a bank to fund the wind turbine projects with $10 billion.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's just the propaganda is outrageous. They'll pretty much stop at nothing. And now I'm going to my notes, which is the important part, because this is the bit that they never want anyone to know. So the cost of wind turbines on our economy begins with the cost of large generation certificates, which is currently $1.46 billion per year. And you get this figure by timesing 33,000 gigawatt hours times the current price of the certificates, which is $45. So added to the cost of LGCs is the ongoing government support of renewables. The Clean Energy Finance Corporation costs $1.3 billion per year. ARENA, which is the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, costs $100 million per year. The 30% safeguard mechanism is $906 million. The Clean Energy Regulator is $750 million. The state schemes are over $14 billion. Here in Western Australia, our state government has paid $3 billion to Synergy RED, which stands for Synergy Renewable Energy. I forget what the D stands for, but that is a subsidiary of Synergy, which is our power, our monopoly power supplier. So our state government has paid $3 billion to that particular subsidiary of our energy retailer. And they're like, this is where it all gets dodgy. We've got foreign investment from the Dutch infrastructure group. I think it was, I don't remember their name exactly. But that $3 billion has been paid to connect these renewable energy projects to our grid, the Southwest Interconnected System. Like, that's an extraordinary amount of money. And how are our farmers supposed to fight against this corruption? Like, it's just, the figures here are astronomical. It's $15.6 billion that we are paying in our electricity bills, and it's all going offshore. That's what they don't want you to know. So I can sing from the rooftops about the health effects and the koalas, all of which is true, but they don't want you to know how much it costs, because as our price of electricity rises astronomically in the coming years, they can't keep the CPI under control. And basically, we have foreign companies building infrastructure connected to our electricity grid that will destabilize the grid. So it's legislated that we will have blackouts, statewide blackouts. This is already occurring in South Australia.
Isn't it alleged that that was happening in Texas as well when they had the blackouts as well? That was part of the problem?
That's how it all began. So it all began with the Enron scandal in California. And there's a great documentary called Enron, the Smartest Guys in the Room. And basically it was a group of geniuses in the trade room that came up with a way to rort the electricity market, and they deliberately turned the power off to game the electricity market, and like it caused people to die. You know, like when you red light traffic lights go off, you have accidents. When your hospitals don't have power, like imagine if you're in surgery when the hospital has to turn on its generator. You know, like it was horrific. Some of them were put in jail eventually, but it's one of the biggest financial scandals and financial crimes that occurred in the US. And what happened was, one of the guys that was part of Enron, his name was Tim Flatto, he was placed under house arrest for 3 years. And when he came out of house arrest, he moved to Australia and started National Power. And they were responsible, along with Infigen Energy, they were responsible for lobbying the government and building our first wind farms here.
Tom, do you have to go to your show?
Yeah, probably help. I don't know. Do you guys are just going to keep going, or I'll pop in and I'll pop back in and I'll see if I can help the guys out.
Might keep going for a little while because
I think you should. I think this is really interesting. Yeah.
If you guys are okay, it's too important to keep going. But just, can I have a show of hands? Hands up, who's not feeling suicidal? Just saying. Put your hand up, Alex.
You might get tired. You might tie yourself to a tree and then shoot yourself in the back of the head, which is a true story. That's one of the Clinton murders. Yeah.
Or find yourself
and it was ruled as a suicide. I'm just going to pop.
I'm going to tie myself to one of the blades and just go around. Say the goal.
I'm just going to pop out. I might pop in. I'm going to talk to the guys
thanks,
what they want to do.
There's it's just crazy, isn't it? How do we? What we're facing really is the corporations are just running. What's the word? Ransacking. They're just running rampant across the country, aren't they? You know, it just is. We're just at a point now where Australians are just powerless. We've seen, and it's probably our own fault because we don't stand up for anything enough, that they just have no regard for us. You know, we're being so compliant. Why should they? Bullies never respect anybody who doesn't stand up for themselves. They just roll over them. And this is what we're happening as a community now. It's just madness. And we just want to have a serious, healthy discussion. Prove it. As we go this way. You know what I mean? I've been to Traralgon and these other places where they're trying to shut down the power there, and they're saying the state cannot survive without these power stations. It just can't. It just will not survive. There'll be
Well, I
power
think
blackouts and all manner of stuff.
in particular now too, with a large proportion of the Australian population trying to cope with the cost of living crisis, they certainly don't want people asking anything about money, and especially if it's going overseas. And your power bill's getting more expensive. They can't have people.
You're paying for this. You're paying for this. Every time you look at your power bill, you're being shafted. This is it. This is what you're paying for.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then there's the cost, like what's the cost to try and come back to rehabilitate? We know that preventative measures are always going to be more cost effective, but also they are also a way to mitigate this ongoing decline in our biodiversity and ecological balance. And these are the words I keep coming back to, the words of sustainability are not in this equation. Ecological balance is not in this equation, and open conversation, and where we have a dialogue that's quite logical, that we know we can rely on certain sciences, and we know that when we go into these areas, that's why there's been no consultation, is because when fishermen that are very passionate get asked these questions, that's what happened in Binningup, and that's how they justified changing the Q&A. Because we had a group of people that most of them had never even stepped foot in WA, had no idea of our marine environment, that the marine species that are found here that are endemic, that this is quite a fragile coral reef system. If you look at the fact that without the way that the Lewin Current and then the upwelling comes up from the Bonnie upwelling all along the coastline here, and the nutrient disbursement, all of that is essential for this very, very fragile balance. And you start messing with that, and then we have a cascade effect. It's the same on land. So I've been doing a lot more research about the change of the substrate underneath in the soils, where earthworms, I had a farmer come up to me from Jerramunga, and he said that the earthworms and the decomposers in the soil have left the areas around these wind turbines. It's actually a marked area because of the vibration and the frequency that's going through the substrate. They can't exist in it, so they've left. So what happens is essentially you now have soil that's starting to die because you don't have those natural processes, which is where we come back to ecologists and botanists. They can tell you all of this stuff. Without having healthy soils, we are not going to have a healthy system. And it's the same in the ocean. We start messing with these systems that are very fragile, have these beautiful interconnected relationships. And when you start messing with that, it is a cascade effect. So whale migration along our coastline is essential to nutrient disbursement. And when they go along and have nice big juicy poos all through the water, they're dropping a lot of nutrient-rich matter into the water that's essential for all of those animals that live in the it's mostly the middle and the bottom layers of the water that those animals need those nutrients. So if we've got whales changing their behaviors, where is the science that has been put in place to say, well, when they change, have to modify their behavior, this is the effect just for that one thing? Yeah. That's just one example. Then you've got the rock lobster and they're an indicator species. So when you have changes in rock lobster and WA, it affects the jewfish. So rock lobster and jewfish love beautiful, healthy, pristine coral reef systems. So if you come in and you're starting to degrade and grind down coral reef systems, and you're getting a lot of debris going through the water, what's going to happen is you're going to have die-off and of this substrate, this whole area. So you could have whole reef systems starting to die off because you've got such a change in the water quality, that where is the science in that? I don't believe that the fact that the federal government has allowed the proponents to do their environmental impact assessment is a fair call at all. I think that the EPA should be the one that's thoroughly assessing this, and they're the ones that should be out there talking to the local experts, the marine scientists, and those that have been in the water, on the ground, whatever you want to call it, that know this stuff inside and out, and they haven't done that at all. And so that's what we've been doing, is making sure that there's a platform here in WA for all of these communities to come to and engage with us. We talk to the fishing industry, from wreck fish to commercial fishing and the rock lobster industry. They're very, very concerned, and the Minister here for Fisheries, crickets, nothing.
Well, we streamed the special electors meeting. I think it was the 24th of April in Bustleton, where both of you spoke there at that meeting as well. Can you give us an update about what's going on with that? Because you had a number of motions that you'd put forward, and a couple of other people as well.
So when it comes to a special electors meeting, you have someone who is the petitioner for the special electors petition. And so from all that we have discerned, what it is that the petitioner is the one that sort of helps coordinate what's happening with the meeting. They're the one that gets contacted back and advised the time, the date, blah, blah, blah. That didn't happen. It got set, and he found out after the fact, which we were horrified at, because they put it to 5:30 in the afternoon, where a lot of people hadn't even finished work in the area. Usually they make it at 6:30, so they discluded a lot of people from attending. And then at the meeting, we said we'll be covering these areas. So we said we'll be looking at the economy, tourism, the marine environment, and a whole bunch of number of issues that came up. And we wanted to make it really specific because it's a tourism mecca down here. And so the thing is that when you start changing the culture of an area and degrading the natural beauty and the natural environment, that has a flow-on effect. And that, again, can be historically shown. There are areas where you've had industry come in and not only change the culture, but change the whole natural beauty of an area. And so you have a massive impact on the way that an area functions, or the way that it is seen then for its natural beauty, and people are drawn to that area. One thing that didn't get brought up in the meeting that I found out afterwards, that we currently have some beautiful big cruise liners that come in off the Bustleton, just park off the Bustleton jetty, sort of. It's 8 k's off, but still, you know, they come on to the shore, and they bring in $250,000 a day to a small community like Bustleton. So they are going to not be able to come and moor in here.
Oh.
So this is a massive impact. So this is information I found out later. So we put forward 4 major motions. They were passed unopposed, so unanimously. Not one single person opposed this. And so when they got passed in, the motions were clearly outlined that we want the Shire to write to individual ministers, or those individuals specifically and independently on each motion. We ask them to write about the motion, to put it forward to them and say that under the guidelines of what the special electors meeting is, the electors have come to a decision that they do not want the wind turbines under these reasonings. So it was clearly outlined that that's what we wanted. And what ended up happening is that they held a special council meeting to discuss these motions that had all been passed. So there was originally 6 that were passed, and then they whittled it down to 5 because one of the motions they said they couldn't really act upon. So what it was is that they reduced down all of those 4 major motions into one. And instead of actioning it as the electors had instructed, because they are public servants, it was voted upon by the electors, those present at the meeting. And it was unopposed to anyone whatsoever, even by written correspondence, that we wanted it done that way. And what they did is they put in a submission not letters, a submission to
Mm.
the federal government, and they had themselves been given an extension on the timeline because there was a cutoff date. They were given
Yeah.
an extension. The Shire was told, oh, we'll give you an extension to put in your submission on behalf of your electors. That's not what we asked for. As
No.
far as I'm concerned, the Mayor, Phil Cronin, has completely failed in representing the electors.
Yep.
Just after so we had this special electors meeting on the Wednesday evening, again, Wednesday evening before Anzac Day when people are away. And the next morning was after I just said, you know, we're going to have real issues and this is going to impact the Shire when whales start washing up on your ocean. And then literally 12 hours later, Alex and myself are in that ocean pulling out dead whale bodies. I think that the universe has spoken. If you can't see that that was some kind of sign from divine, whatever you want to call it, even if it's just a nature call, that's what was said and that's exactly what happened. That had a huge impact. So then that was the Thursday, and then by the next Monday, Phil Cronin did an interview on the ABC where he allowed us, all of his electors and the people concerned about these plans were called NIMBYs. He mocked all of us, mocked the process, and said that basically, look, you know, we'll just think about it, but I'll do what I like and not really represent the people. Disappointing.
I have
So at
a
this point,
comment here for you ladies. Are these ladies part of a party? If so, who?
a party.
Must be a political party.
Well, mention your group.
I'm part of Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay, which is a community group, yeah.
And Martine, could you please talk about the rally that we have coming up on Sunday in Bunbury?
So we have our very first rally at Ground Zero, City of Bunbury. So the City of Bunbury are right in the mix of it because they seem to have committed heavily to a lot of the extensions to port that supports all of these offshore wind turbines. There's a lot of stuff going on that we're asking questions about. So we're having our first rally. It's this Sunday, the 16th, 10 a.m. and it's going to be at the Graham Bricknell Shell. And we've got a few surprise acts coming up with that. So that'll be great. And we have some pretty amazing speakers. We have this lovely Honourable Sophia Mamond. She has been on board with us. I don't think you could get someone who's a parliamentary member. She's an MLC, a member of Legislative Council in the Upper House in WA. And she's been out there engaging with the community, all the really hard questions about what's the impact, how can we need to start listening to you because she has real concerns. So she's been on board. She'll be speaking. And then we've got the one and only Pauline Hanson that's going to be talking as well. So that's going to be amazing. And there's a lovely lady who's going to be MC. Her name's Robin. So we're really looking forward to that. So, yeah, I'm very excited. There's a lot of people preparing banners. I've got messages from mums and dads saying, my kids are so excited. They're making their little plaques and their little banners. And, yeah, adorable.
Here we have a great question here. Look, comment. My electricity bill is basically quadrupled in 2 years. My household population is halved. You know, this is what we're seeing everywhere. I'm hearing it everywhere. Natalie Spence, what ways could we get involved?
So getting involved means that you really want to find out as much information you can about the impacts of offshore wind turbines, onshore wind turbines, if you're concerned in like more agricultural area, because by seeing that all of these things that are happening right now, all interconnected under the umbrella of the World Economic Forum, climate change agenda, and how we need to be taking away cattle and sheep that fart and whatever else on the land and replacing that with solar farms and regenerating the land but don't really have any primary producers. Let's lock them out of the ocean from commercial and even recreational fishing by these marine parks. What it seems to be showing is the marine parks butt up right against these proposed areas for this renewable green renewables, not so green. And so what it seems to be, there's a total lockout along the coastline. Well, that's some of the best protein that is easily available to a lot of people to go in throwing a fishing line, catch a few fish and feed your family. And if you can't do that, again, talking about human rights violations, come on. Like people need to stand up. You know, that's why I went to Save the Sheep, and people might be going, oh, that's horrific. But it's like I've seen an overhaul of that whole industry, and they have really, really improved conditions. And I think that to take away people's livelihood and leave them without food on their plate and be able to sustain their lives and their families, and this is generational, I think is criminal. I don't think the government should have the right to do that without any consultation like they have.
That's one of the things. I played a short video from former investment banker Catherine Austin Fitz on my morning show, and because we were doing a bird flu watch, but you know, going through and talking about the chickens, the turkeys, the cows, so on and so forth. And Catherine goes on to talk about, you know, the manufactured food crisis, and that's what they need to do, is they need to control the food supply. You've just mentioned the WEF, you've just mentioned people not being able to access the ocean, all these sorts of things, and also the agricultural land, you know, and all these types of things. So ultimately, you know, here's our tinfoil hats again, and let's put on our tinfoil suits. But really, you know, controlling our food sources, creating this manufactured food crisis is one way that we end up with, you know, controlling all of our finances, CBDCs, you know, universal basic income. It just goes on and on and on. So where you started there, Martine, with people investigating where they are, whether it's offshore or onshore, and you know, the sort of domino effect, you know, information is our ammunition, and that's a great thing that people can do.
So we've had a lot of people that have come on, joined.
Quick question there, Martine. How long does it take to construct one turbine in the ocean of this size? Do you know? It's just such a
well,
good
again,
question.
because we've asked about what kind of technology, where's the technology coming from in the Q&A sessions, there wasn't any straight answers. But it's going to be a rollout over like a 10 years kind of thing. So it's like, so are you telling us it's going to be a construction site in the ocean for like 10 years? And you pause there for a minute, you're just like, what? No, that can't be right. So they're saying it's kind of a rollout. So, and this is where, you know, this lady's saying that, oh, you just have to avoid it during migration times. It's like, are you actually telling me that these Denmark-based international conglomerates that want to come into our waters and put this infrastructure in place as quick as possible so they can get money in their pocket, you're going to tell me they're going to stop putting this infrastructure in the ocean because the whales are migrating? Really? Okay. Well, this is where I just kind of go, I don't believe it. So there's too many questions about how far they're trying to fast track it now. They're wanting to get this in our oceans as quick as possible. And we're going to push back as hard as we can, because when you've got commercial fishing coming on board, recreational fishing, surfers, people that are coming on board from everyday life, realizing the impact this is going to have on our marine habitat. And that's a big part of what this is, because once this is done, you cut through those reef systems, there is absolutely no way to repair them. I mean, look how much money was put into trying to repair the Great Barrier Reef. Like, come on. I mean, let's save the reef, but yeah, we're going to come through and destroy all of these beautiful coral reef systems down here for this insane plan. So there's no real timeline that we've been given. We're given it's like, oh, it'll only happen in the next 7 to 10 years. But I disagree. They're saying that they're going to try and get them in the water in the next 2.
I just have one more question for Alex before we wrap up. Now, initially you said, Alex, that they started them sometimes with coal from the coal-fired plants, you know, that to turn them. Because as I've traveled the country now since the interview with you, I watch them a lot. Sometimes it's blowing like crazy and they're still. And other times it's completely still and they're turning. And so your claim is that they're using coal-fired, you know, I'm sorry, I'm so tired after this last week, coal-fired platforms to turn them.
Yeah, so basically wind turbines require base load power to balance them on the grid. My understanding is that the initial wind turbines that were built also drew power off the grid to start turning. One of the construction engineers has said to me that the ones that they're constructing now, and I don't know if this is correct or not, they have enough power in the enough residual magnetism in the battery that they can start in that way. However, they still require base load power from the grid to feather the blades. So they are still drawing off the grid to feather the blades. And that part is actually really important, because if the blade feathering fails, and it does, then the brakes fail and then they catch on fire. And this is one of the problems, because when they catch on fire and the neighbour's farm goes up, the landholder is liable for those damages. So the landholder is liable for the noise nuisance and for the fire risk. It's one of the things that not many people understand. And then, so
you're saying that not only are we using our taxpayers' money to build them, but now we're using our taxpayers' money to make the fuckers turn.
Yeah.
That's what we're actually doing.
Yeah, and
it's supposed to be taking us into the new century, or the new world where we live off wind, you know what I mean? And we're actually, our coal is actually
correct. And
Talk about the
one of the
subsidies.
things with the turbines is so when they talk about the size of the turbine, so for example, the Esperance wind farm, I believe, is 6 megawatt turbines, and they're proposing 15 megawatts and bigger for out in the ocean. So that is the nameplate capacity of the turbine. That is not actually its capacity factor. So what happens is you get the nameplate capacity and you times it by 27%. So the average is between 27 and 29%. That's the industry's figure. So I'm using their own figure. So of that nameplate capacity, they are producing 27% of that. So the way that I refer to it, and they hate this, is that they only work 2 days a week, because 27% of 7 days a week is 2 days a week. The other 5 days a week, they go missing or they go on holiday. And what you may have seen, Michael, is that like when we used to bring the politicians out to the wind turbines to actually see what was going on these farms, they used to gear them down, and they do that a lot. So the wind might be blowing quite strongly and they've geared them down. And it's quite bizarre to experience. When I believe when they're geared down is that they're kind of masking the health effects and the seismic vibrations that are going out. But there's quite a lot to it, and it's all being run from a desktop in Germany or in Spain or wherever they are. They really aren't connected to our country at all. Someone that's running a desktop program in Denmark, for example, Copenhagen Energy, they're not going to give a damn about our whales or about us.
Just saying, so right now in Denmark or Spain or Germany, there could be a little office with all these computers where they actually might be watching us now. So can we send a message from Australia?
Guten Tag. Guten
Fuck
Abend.
you.
I have a lovely hashtag, and it's Vikings go home.
Yeah.
Fuck off. God damn. This is And look, come on. Would you be open if someone did want to come on and debate? And I'm trying to get this professor who questions climate change. I'd love to have a proper debate on here. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean? This is what can happen. They've got bits of truth. We got bits of truth. Let's find out. But that's what free speech is about. We talk, we debate, we explore, we uncover problems through. Thanks, Steve. We uncover problems through free speech and debate, and then we grow from there. But this whole way. I said to someone the other day, you know the difference between an artist and a woke artist? A true artist holds up a mirror constructed of their experiences, their senses, their heart, soul, and everything. This is what I think we look like. This is what I think. The woke hand holds up a photograph or a picture and says, "You need to look and think like this, or you're against us."
Yep.
And the science and the left in the parliament is the same. No questions. We're going this way. I think even Klaus said, "Don't debate anybody." You know what I mean? And this is how crazy we are. And if you don't believe me, go back on the ABC to the start of COVID and try find a good, healthy, serious debate about the lockdowns and the rollout of the vaccines or anything. Nothing. Nada.
Mm.
I think the first COVID debate happened on this show with Dr. William Bay and Dr. Daniel Nino. I think that was the Nino. I
Mm.
think that was the first one that I'd heard of. And you were there, Robin. We did that in Albany. I think you were
Mhm.
there, Alex.
Yes.
It was,
They were in Albany.
insane. In this tiny little room in a shopping center. I mean, it was just balmy.
Yep.
And that was it. The first debate. And this is how crazy we are. And this is your country, people. You are not passengers on a train where you have no say where
Yeah.
the country's going. You've actually got to say, pull the ripcord and say, wait the fuck up. My power bill is costing me 4 times as much, and my kids have left home. Nah, that's bullshit. And ask serious, serious questions and start talking. It's okay to ask questions, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're a redneck. It just means you're finding your power. Now, ladies, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to start with Robin because it's just been a really big week, especially with the loss of Dazzle. And there's a lot of people out there, not a lot, but there's a lot of people attacking Dazzle's parents at the moment, which is just, let's not go there. It's I've done a tweet about it, but going round, Robin, any last words before we shoot around to Alex?
Yes, so if you are down the southwest of Western Australia over the weekend, come along to Bunbury for the rally, and also I believe there's one in Cowbarry as well. So if you're interested in that, you can certainly head along to Carriages Secure on Facebook. It's up there, and you can talk about your page. But yeah, thank you so much once again, Alex and Martine, for speaking to us. And I think you did a fantastic job on Four Corners, Martine, despite Angus. And I'm sorry you now have Angus Tourette's. You need to go and get a topical ointment for that, and then you'll be fine. It's great to talk to you ladies again. Thank you.
Where does the topical ointment go, Robin?
Oh dear.
I ain't touching that. I'm still trying to make a joke about whale poo because she made it sound so delicious. I was thinking, God, you know. There's Martine.
Oh, look, thank you. Michael, thank you. I think that the platform that you've provided for so many people during some of the most challenging times that we've been through in the last 3 to 4 years in Australia, honestly, like really, thank you. And to Robin, you've supported us from the beginning, and Save Our Beloved Geograph Bay is immensely grateful for that. And all I know is that we're very excited too for this weekend. And Michael, just so you know, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have reached out and met Alex. So,
there you go.
You know, like you brought us together, Soul Sisters United.
Like
So yeah, all I can say is that I think that there's a lot of ideas that have been thrown around tonight, and
yeah, there you go. There you go. You just, yeah.
They're doing it to me again. So I've been contacted by a lot of people, and you can imagine a lot of people, a lot of slander. I had some hate messages as well. Yeah, bye.
Oh, don't worry. Tell you about the hate messages. This is how to use them. Look at them as a positive.
Yeah.
We can't leave our country in the moral our country to the moral guardianship of these trolls. We just can't do it.
No.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah, so all I can say is that a lot of those that were involved in the process of those interrogation / let's just call it an interrogation, not an interview process, have reached out. And I think it'd be great to actually hear from all of them and give them a balanced platform where they all get the chance to speak their truth, just as I have tonight and Alex. I
Absolutely.
think that would be really, really fair.
It's balanced.
I
They
know
should have
that
had the
others.
balance on ABC.
Yeah, so I think that would be great to have all of those involved, whether that's maybe part 1 and part 2. There's quite a few, but yeah, I think that that's really beneficial. And thank you tonight for taking the time to let me speak the actual truth as it was, not as it was chopped and edited. Because
Angus.
the Angus chop.
Angus chop.
So for me, I just I know that when I get into a situation
We should
where
just call him Chop from now on. Let's just call him Chop. You've been chopped.
So I try to speak in a way that's intelligent but actually palatable, because if I go into a lot of detail about certain things to do with the marine environment, I don't want to lose people, but also those that are ready to engage on a deeper level. Let's do that if we can. But for me, I try and keep it that it's being able to connect with as many people as possible. I think that's the most important thing, is because when you're willing to listen to others and communicate to them on a level that they can comprehend, I think that that's when people are heard and they appreciate that from their heart and soul. And that's what we've been doing all along the WA coastline. And thank God we have, because those beautiful people up in Kalbarri really need WA and Australia's support. And there's other communities in Lake Lancelin, Dongara to Geraldton, back of Rottnest. Hello, Perth people, wake up. There's all of these areas scheduled for this, and people had no idea. They still don't.
Yeah, I'd still have questions. Okay, before we go to Alex, I just want to say to everyone in WA, I hope you're aware of how hard how hard Robin works for you, and how amazing she is. She does a show. She'll do 4 or 5 hours prep getting ready for the show. Not like me, who just thinks I winged everything. She actually does. And she's an absolute credit to you. And there's so few in WA. I know most of them, and they're very hardworking. And we are honoured and blessed to have Robin stream to our platform. So I hope you're aware of how brave she is and how hard she works, because she doesn't get the accolades for it. Alex,
Courage is the cure.
That's it. Oh, she's gone again.
I just want to say how grateful I am to you, Michael,
Okay.
and to you, Robin.
Sorry, Alex. They just want details of the rally, and then we'll go to you. So they're just everyone's saying details.
So the rally details, it's this Sunday, the 16th of June at 10 a.m. in Bunbury, and it's going to be held at the Graham Bricknell Music Show, which is just next to the Bunbury Regional Entertainment Centre, just next to that, just up the road. So yeah, come along. It's going to be monumental, I think. I think this is a really, really big one for WA, because it's really uniting so many people. And that's what we need to do, bring back unification in this country and stop this division.
Amen. Alex, take us out, lady.
Yeah, I was just saying how grateful I am to all of you. I'm so grateful, Michael, that you got me in the bus. And
I didn't ask for compliments. I said, take us
interview.
out.
And I'm so grateful to Robin for her support. Speaking up against the industry is really frightening for me. It's a tough gig, and I'm so grateful to have your support. And I'll try not to cry. I'll just say thank you so much. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for all of your comments and support. And please open the discussion about these topics and start asking questions. Thank you so much, guys.
Awesome.
Stay in touch, ladies. Stay in touch. Platform's yours, and let's just keep talking. Let's keep talking. And Angus Chop, you're more than welcome to come on the show, brother. Come and have a chat. We don't bite, although we might infect you with a bit of freedom. You got to be worried about that.
True.
Okay, here we're going out with Freedom Road, And then what the fuck is on now? They probably haven't even run the intro yet, knowing those guys. So enjoy the show and see if you can make it through the end. I think 5 hours 40 minutes is their latest record. Anyway, ladies, thanks for coming on, and I commend you for your courage in this time where we are not girt by sea, we are girt by cowards. Good luck to us all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
There's a sign on the highway. There's a fork in the road. A lifetime of lessons learned don't mean nothing, it shows. Armchair doctor, experts making all the rules, selling us their theories while they take us all for fools. And there's nowhere left to hide on that freedom road. Don't tell me what to think, don't tell me how to live on that freedom road. Get your hand out of my pocket, I got no more to give, I got no more to give.
Back, I said the Aussie spirit is